Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Mayo Clinic and the Mayo Clinic Healthy Living Program, and welcome to today's webinar on weight loss, 5 behavioral strategies for success. To start with, we just want to introduce ourselves, and first, I'm Dr. Matthew Clark. I'm a clinical health psychologist.
And I'm Brooke Werneburg, and I'm a Resiliency Specialist and Certified Wellness Coach at the Healthy Living Program.
And now just to tell you a little bit more about ourselves so you know where some of our answers and questions are coming from. So I'm a health psychologist that's worked with weight management, work with people that are really invested in losing weight, trying to make the quality of life better, lead weekly groups for over 30 years, also look at research and work with the medical team. So trying to look at this, what do we know from science, which is best, but also what do we know from a personal experience, what might work best for you. And the reason the two of us are doing the talk together, we've worked together for a number of years, and just trying to help people look at what kind of knowledge will help guide my decisions, but also what kind of wellness decisions will work for me. And so that's my background. Would you like to say more about yours?
I've had the opportunity to work with individuals in group-based settings as well as in one-on-one wellness coaching in many areas, including stress management and weight management, not only through our Healthy Living program, but also with our employee wellness population over the past 9 years.
So welcome, everyone. And our format today is we're both going to talk about what we see as behavioral strategies, which can be successful for people. And then at the end, we'll be answering some of the questions that you've sent to us. First, just wanted to say thank you for your time. Everybody's time is precious, and we hope today that you walk away with a few ideas on how to make things different for you. My first slide is just looking at body mass index. And the reason that I included this is sometimes when we're thinking about recommendations, what should I do to lose weight? What should I do to maintain weight? Part of the answer is going to be how much weight is a person thinking about losing, or how much weight have you lost in the past? So just kind of a general guideline. Maybe I'm someone who's 10 pounds overweight. Well, maybe if I'm 10 pounds overweight, maybe just making a decision to eat a little bit healthier in the evening, maybe that's going to guide me. In contrast, maybe I'm someone who's 100 pounds overweight and I have a lot of health problems, and I'm really going to need a team of experts behind me to help me guide for success. So what I put up with, a lot of times when you're reading materials about weight management, it talks about body mass index. Body mass index is just a measure of our height and our weight. And what's nice about it is it's gender neutral, doesn't matter male or female, and it's just a number. In general, if your body mass index is less than a 25, you're probably in a healthy weight. If you're between 25 and 30, that might be some evidence that you're becoming overweight. Once you reach a body mass index of 30, that's probably where weight's beginning to have some health problems. And if your body mass index is in the 40s or 50s, that's where we see people having type 2 diabetes, obstructive sleep apnea. So part of just right from the beginning is thinking about what is my weight and how much weight am I thinking I need to lose to get health benefits and quality of life benefits. Want to talk to you today about skills, and the reason for that is just a study that we did way back in 2002, and this was residents of Olmsted County. And just mention this study, one of the amazing resources we have at Mayo Clinic, not only do we have people coming from us nationally and internationally, but we have a lot of people that live in Olmsted County throughout their lives. So that allows us to really look at, if I gained 30 pounds when I was in my 20s, how important is that compared to if I gained 30 pounds when I'm in my 50s? Because a lot of people, myself included, get our medical care at Mayo Clinic. So we did this telephone survey of residents in our county, and at that time it was thought, from a public health perspective, what we really need to do is to educate people on how serious being overweight is and making sure people knew whether they were overweight or not. And what we found is about 2/3 of men and about half of women were overweight. But fortunately, what we found is most men and most women were trying to do something to manage their weight. So when we did the study, we thought maybe people are overweight and they just don't know it. No, that's not what we found. We found people are like, I'm overweight and I'm concerned about it and I'm trying to do something. Unfortunately, what we found is most people, if they're trying to lose weight, I really like exercise, so I'm going to try to go to the health club, and that's how I'm going to lose weight. Or maybe I'm someone who I have cooking skills, so I'm not going to pay attention to this exercise part. I'm going to look at the nutritional part. And what we find is most people just try one approach or the other. And when you look at success, it's people that combine physical activity and nutritional changes. And that's what we're going to encourage you to do today. And that part of that's just based on our survey we did, where most people are trying to lose weight, but most people aren't putting together a comprehensive program. As we're talking, we also wanted to keep in mind, most of the people that I've worked with they've been overweight for a long period of time. And most people say, you know what, this isn't the first time I'm trying to lose weight. And unfortunately, what I've done in the past, I lost 10 pounds, then my work hours changed, started caregiving for someone. It was difficult for me to keep exercising or eating healthy, and I gained 15 pounds. 8 years later, I decided to go on another weight loss program. And people have the cycle of losing weight and then gaining more weight. And that's just emotionally, it's just really difficult for us. And so when we've looked at emotionally, psychologically, what might that do for someone? What we've kind of found is here's a kind of cycle that people can go through. I have this desire for change. And unfortunately nowadays, when you read a lot in the press media, I can follow this diet and lose 20 pounds in 20 days, or this diet and I can lose 30 pounds in 30 days. So if I don't have unrealistic expectations, I'll probably get them. Or my friends or coworkers might say to me, hey, I got this great weight loss program, you can lose 12 pounds in 12 days. So I have these unrealistic expectations. Usually people are pretty restrictive when they start off, and that's one of the points we'll come back to. So I'm just gonna eat one meal a day, I'm gonna go to the health club 3 hours a day. It's just unrealistic. I'm not doing something healthy. I'm not doing something I can maintain over time. But I'm being really drastic, and I get that initial weight loss. So it's reinforcing. So I see myself losing weight. And unfortunately, we all hit a weight loss plateau. So I've lost my 7 pounds, and now I've maintained the same weight for the last 5 days. So then I get discouraged. When I get discouraged, go back to my old habits, gain weight. And now not only have I put the weight back on, but it's also reduced my confidence. In order to be successful at this, we have to be confident. I have to be confident I can follow a healthy diet plan. I have to be confident I can be physically active. So every time I try something that's unrealistic and too intense, it sets me up for discouragement and failure. And this is a cycle most people that I've worked with can relate to. And I see Brooke nodding her head, so I know she agrees.
Yeah. We're going to talk more about these strategies here coming up, how we can continue to boost that confidence and embrace it when things happen.
And so we were, in putting this together, we were just thinking, what are 5 kind of important weight management strategies that people can think of? And these are the 5 that we want to walk through. One is just when you think about a weight loss program, most people think about a nutrition plan or a physical activity program. We want you to think about both. And we also want you to involve your healthcare team. Because a lot of us know that my weight impacts my health, but we don't always think about how my health can impact my weight loss program. We'd recommend that you set realistic goals. Most of the people I'd say we both worked with, it's not that people aren't trying. Sometimes people are trying too much, and then I don't succeed and I get upset. We want you to use positive thinking and have confidence. A lot of people forget to have a motivation plan. So I'm really motivated today, but a couple of weeks from now I get busier at work or someone in my family has some health problems. So it's difficult to stay motivated over time. So we want to talk to you about a motivation plan. And then we all make mistakes, so we want to have plans for recovering from when we make mistakes. But let me first talk to you about a nutrition plan. Right from the start, we want you to just think about, do you have health considerations, health problems, health history, where some guidance from your healthcare team would be beneficial to you? So for example, if you have type 2 diabetes or cardiac health, I want to know, is there a particular diet that I should follow? Am I someone who should be paying attention to calories only? Do I need to look at the sodium in my diet? Do I need to look at sugar content? So what are the health problems that I need some guidance on? I want to exercise in a healthy way. So I may need some guidance from my physician about what's a healthy exercise program for me. So right from the beginning, just to talk to your primary care physician and get some guidance for this program.
Not only that, but it helps develop your support as you're going along, which we'll also speak about. That's an important consideration as you're making your plan.
That's a wonderful point, and we come back and we talk about that later. Usually people think about support just from my family or my coworkers, and we don't always think about our healthcare team being a source of support from us. So involving them right from the beginning just helps people be supportive. Yeah. So in terms of a nutrition plan, a number of things that people kind of need to think about. There's a lot of different diets out there, and my thought on in terms of what's the best diet is the one that's best for you. And what's your health status, what's your motivation, what's your eating plan. So one thing to think about is just, do I have health considerations? Do I have hypertension? I should be following a diet that's suitable for people that are trying to manage their hypertension. Do I have type 2 diabetes? So what are my health considerations? Now here's some questions that I encourage everybody to think about. We've certainly learned that having 3 planned meals per day is helpful. If I have breakfast, and that's the meal that most Americans don't have, somewhere between half and 2/3 of us don't have breakfast. But when we have breakfast, it helps us prevent hunger from building during the day. It gets our metabolism going. Every study that I've ever read that looks at what helps people keep weight loss off long term, people are having 3 meals a day. So we know that's important. Snacks, that's something that I think is a real individual decision. Every time we eat, we run the risk of continuing to eat. So when I sit down for dinner, it opens the door for me to have seconds and thirds. So one person might say, you know what, I'm just going to have 3 meals a day because now I only have to deal with stopping eating 3 times. On the other hand, snacking can really help us manage our hunger. And if I have lunch at noon and dinner's not going to be till 7 because my kids are busy and active in sports, probably having a 4 o'clock snack would be beneficial to me. If I have type 2 diabetes, snacking may or may not be part of the plan. But just to individually decide, is snacking beneficial to me? My experience has been most people, at least 1 snack a day is helpful, either kind of that mid-afternoon, or I live with people and they're eating junk food at 9 o'clock at night, and instead of just not eating anything, let me plan a healthy snack.
I think the biggest thing when I've been working with individuals around the snacking piece is really paying attention to, is this a planned snack? Did I plan it into my day and my meal plan versus me reacting and needing something right now? So I think that planning ahead mentality could help with that area.
And that's a great point, because those impulse purchases tend to be the higher calorie versus the healthy snacks I packed in the morning and brought to work. Meal planning. Some people really benefit, and this is a real individual decision, I think. Some people really benefit from sitting down on a Sunday, sitting down with my spouse, my family, kind of planning through what the meals are going to be. I tend to eat the same meals every week because I know what the calorie and the mix are. Other people really need more flexibility. There's advantages to both. The planned one gives me structure and guidance, and I know what to get at the grocery store, but it can get boring and repetitive, and I may overeat because of the challenge. So you just have to know yourself. And then we want you to keep some kind of record keeping, and I have to know when have I had too much. Some people will count food groups, so I can have, my plan is to have 2 fruits a day, 3 servings of fresh vegetables, 5 carbohydrates. So food groups would be a way. Some people count calories, some people count fat grams. I haven't seen any evidence that one system works better than the other. It's what system makes sense for the person, and what will the person use over time. Moderation. This is a real challenge for a lot of people. A lot of times when we're trying to change a behavior, so I'm a cigarette smoker and I'm smoking a pack a day, my goal is going to be to give up cigarettes. If I'm someone who likes junk food, if I tell myself I'm going to give up junk food, that usually doesn't work for people. And what we see is I can give up my potato chips for 3 days, 5 days, but then I just start craving potato chips, and before you know it, I've invested in a potato chip company, and I'm making all the potato chips in Minnesota. So learning how to moderate this is helpful. So no, I can't sit down by myself at 10 o'clock at night with a big bag of chips, but maybe twice a week when I'm out to lunch, I can get a small bag of chips, have it with other people, plan that into my calories for the day. So learning moderation is a goal for people.
Can I add one thing to that? A lot of times when I'm working with individuals, I'll have them ask themselves that question, what am I okay with? So I'm okay with having a snack bag of chips, but I'm not okay with the big bag on the couch. So to kind of ask yourself that question, what am I okay with as part of my diet plan or my regimen that I'm trying to stick to? Kind of helps set up some boundaries for you.
Great point. And then the last one is just pick your record-keeping system. Can be pen and pencil, can be online, can be the Mayo Clinic Diet Online. There's a number of programs out there. What's really important is to find one that works for you, because what we found is people that record their intake manage those high-risk situations. There's a Dr. Daniel Kirschenbaum who works at Northwestern and who's really looked at food records, and what he has found is during challenging holiday seasons, people that are keeping food records stay on track. People that aren't keeping food records, that's a time to make a lot of mistakes and just get off track. So find a record system that works for you. Physical activity. In the past, when we had talked to people about physical activity, we primarily just talked to people about aerobic activity. And I think the main thing people were interested in is, how do I start aerobic activity? And is my goal 30 minutes or 60 minutes a day? And there's still some discussion about how much aerobic activity is beneficial for folks. But clearly an aerobic activity program is important. The two new areas that we've been looking at, one is strength training, just some new evidence that doing strength training is helpful for people for weight loss and weight maintenance. And this is a key area to get some physician guidance from. And then the third area is lifestyle activity. So Dr. Levine, who's one of our endocrinologists, was one of the first researchers that really just looked at what's the difference between people that are healthy weight and people that are overweight. Is it that they're going to a gym? Is it that they're long distance runners? What is the difference? And what we found the main difference is how many calories do you burn during your typical day? So if you have a job like mine and you're sitting around talking to people all day, you're not burning a lot of calories unless you really decide to make a difference for it. So looking at lifestyle activities is important. And this is a new area to look at. And the difference can add up quite a bit. It can be 100 to 200 calories a day. And over time, that can be up to 10, 20 pounds in a year.
What I like about that, Dr. Clark, is it changes our mindset a little bit around how we think physical activity has to be. It can open the doors for us for a lot of other opportunities.
The other point about physical activity is just to make physical activity fun. So many people that I've worked with have really looked at, I've met with my physician and my exercise physiologist, which was great. I'd recommend that. And people are just so focused on how many minutes do I have to do? What do I have to get my heart rate to? What's my target range? What's my cool down? And that's all important. But I've forgotten about doing something that's fun. Because if it's fun and enjoyable, then I'm going to be more likely to continue doing it. So before I think about a physical, or when I'm thinking about my physical activity, in addition to thinking about what's healthy for me, also what do I enjoy doing? One of the things we've been learning about is for a lot of people, nature can be helpful. And sometimes after a busy and stressful day, just being outdoors can be helpful for people. So thinking about maybe walking outdoors, spending time with people. Also, and this is something we've been working together over a couple of years, is how do I spend my typical day? And that might tell me what kind of exercise program I might want. So for example, if I'm here and I'm working in a lab and I'm looking at slides all day, maybe I'm the kind of person who should be in a group exercise program. Versus maybe I'm someone who works at one of our desks and I'm interacting with people and patients all day long. Maybe what I need is some quiet time, and maybe I should be walking by myself. And so just to think about how can physical activity complement the day that I'm having. And then what's practical, I get a lot of questions from people, and I think these are some of the ones that I had read in advance. When's the best time for me to exercise? To me, the answer is the time that works for you. Unless I'm a professional athlete trying to carve off 100th of a second on my next 10K that I'm running, it's really a question of if I get up in the morning and go for a walk, is that what works in my schedule? Or in the evening, do I have a neighbor that will go with me? So to think about what's fun and what's going to work for me. I put walking as our last point. Just a lot of people that I've worked with are apologetic that their exercise program is walking. And my thought on that is, we think historically, what have people done? It's walking. I'm walking to work. I'm walking as part of my job. It's convenient for most people. I can do it in the middle of my workday. I can do it at the end of the day. It can be social. It's low impact. Walking is wonderful. And we've looked at what's the physical activity program that people maintain over time. Walking's a big part of it.
Yeah, I would agree. It's something that you can always start with and add on to, and you can really do it anywhere. A lot of the individuals I've worked with, if they like the pool, would even adapt that and do water walking if they enjoy water as well to gain some resistance.
So on to goal setting. When I'm in the groups that I lead, when I ask people, what happens when you don't set goals? Most people say is, if I don't set goals or weigh in and I go check myself next year, my weight's going to be up 5 pounds. So not setting goals doesn't work. Then I ask people, when you set goals, what kinds of goals have you set? And people usually set pretty high goals. I haven't had breakfast in 15 years, but I'm going to have breakfast every day this week. I haven't been physically active in a long time, but I'm going to walk 30 minutes a day. And when we set goals like that, they're just not practical and we can't achieve them, and then we fail, and it just brings down our confidence, and we get into that whole negative cycle. So one of the skills we encourage people to do is when you think about a goal, to set a SMART goal. And I don't know who to give credit to because we use this in a lot of our different groups, and I'm sure it's out there nationally. So it's not our goal setting strategy, it's just an effective goal setting strategy. And part of what it's about is the outcome is important. I want to lose weight because I want to improve my health, but setting a goal of weight loss doesn't tell me what to do. So I want to pick a behavioral goal, and I want to be specific. So my goal isn't to eat healthier this week. My goal is to have an apple every day at 3 o'clock instead of a bag of chips. My goal is to start having breakfast, and here's what my breakfast is going to be. So I want to be specific because that tells me what to do, and that tells me whether I've achieved it or not. I want to be able to measure it. And sometimes for a weight management goal, my goal could be, I know when I stay up too late, I tend to overeat the next day. Specific goal could be to get to bed by this set time, and I'm going to measure that to make sure that I've done that. Attainable, and this is where most people struggle with, is we set goals too high for ourselves. So one way I can see if a goal is attainable is if my best friend just told me this was their goal, would I try to talk them out of it? So if my best friend says, you know what, I haven't had a fresh fruit or vegetable in the last 15 years, but starting tomorrow I'm going to have 5 a day, I'd probably say to them, you know what, why don't you just have one? I mean, if you have more than one, great, and that would build your confidence, but why not just have one, and why not just say 3 days a week to start with? So you can always ask people, if you were going to set this goal, would this be helpful to you? And this is one of the things I like in groups, because groups can usually give you good feedback on whether it's attainable or not. The R is for relevant, and where that's coming from is if you're going to start managing your weight, there's so many different things that you can do. I can cut out regular soda, I can start exercising, I can have breakfast, I can start out junk food, I can drink more water. Where do I start? I want to start with those ones that have personal relevance for me, and because those are going to be the ones that I'm more motivated for. And then I want to track these. And I already mentioned how food records can be important, and what has been surprising to me is also just tracking our physical activity level is important. There was a study out of Chicago where a group of primary care physicians just looked at what happens with pedometers. Well, most of us, we buy a pedometer, I put it in my kitchen drawer, so it doesn't really help, not surprising. Does wearing a pedometer help? It doesn't really seem to change people's behavior, which surprised me, because a pedometer is just how many steps did I take today. So I took 2,000 steps, 3,000 steps. People that write that down could just be in my calendar, 2,000 steps. Tomorrow I took 2,008 steps. That act of writing down just seems to help people make changes. So you want to track what you're doing. One last topic for me to talk about is just negative and positive thinking. And when I talk to people about positive thinking, sometimes people have the impression that I have to say to myself, today is beautiful, it's all wonderful, it's sunny out, there's butterflies and flowers. That's not what I mean by positive thinking. That would be fine if you want to think that, but it's more what helps me achieve my goals. And so sometimes my thoughts don't have to be pleasant in order to be positive. So I'm a college student and I have an exam coming up in a few days. To tell myself I better study and I better not go out with my friends, that would be positive thinking because it's going to help me do well in the test. So positive doesn't have to be all soft, fluffy talk.
It can be realistic, is what you're saying.
Better word. So just some examples. So sometimes, again, because I've been in a weight loss program and I've just failed 10 times, I'm never going to succeed at achieving a healthy weight. If I enter this with that mindset, it's just going to be really challenging. So instead, I could say something to myself, I can make a small change. Well, I can have an apple a day. I can find someone to walk with for 10 minutes. So the small change is going to be a positive thinking. A lot of times people set specific weight goals and specific weekly weight goals. So I must lose 2 pounds this week, and if I don't, that means that I'm failing. I might as well stop what I'm doing. We don't have control over how much weight we're going to lose. We have control over our activity level and our nutritional intake. And so instead of I will lose weight this week, I'll be smart. So I'm going to set a specific goal that's reasonable and attainable. Back to the moderation. I will never eat chocolate again, potato chips again, pizza again, fill in your favorite word. When people make those kinds of promises, I start getting urges and cravings to have more of those. So what we'd more recommend is I'll try to learn how to manage my problem foods. And typically what we suggest is instead of having my problem foods alone on a day where I'm not feeling that well, I'm going to have them in positive social enjoyment. So I'm much more likely to overeat leftover cake by myself at 10 o'clock at night than I would to have a second piece of cake at somebody's birthday party. So how am I going to manage my problem foods? When people overeat, it's not that I overate, it's that I'm a failure. And that's pretty negative self-talk. And how do I make changes if I'm a failure, as opposed to I failed today? So instead of I'm a failure, let me see where I went wrong. Well, I walked into a summer barbecue, I didn't have a plan. I probably shouldn't do that next time. Next time I should think about how I'm going to manage this. And then I think this is my last example. A lot of negative self-talk about overeating, and a lot of it gets at self-esteem. And again, it's not that I made a mistake, but I'm a bad person. I let myself down. I let my family down because I had a chocolate bar at 3 o'clock. And that's pretty negative and harsh self-talk. And it's going to be hard to get back on track or have a positive day. So instead, to think about, let me focus on how I can help others, just totally getting away from the food idea, and just let me look at kind of general resiliency and stress management.
What you're doing right there is you're taking it away from yourself as well, and kind of having this external focus. You can take it away from your own feelings.
Yeah, so getting out of that negative self-talk and just who are the other people that I care about and what are the positive things that I can make.
That's great. So yeah, one more.
Oh.
If I don't exercise every day, I'm worthless.
So a lot of times, again, this is when I talked about moderation before, it was with food, but we do the same thing with exercise. I'm going to exercise every day. Well, today I'm working overtime. Today I'm helping someone go to the doctor's appointment. So I can't exercise today. And then I think, again, I'm a failure, so then why bother exercising? So instead I could say, my goal is to be more active. How can I succeed at doing this? So shifting those negative self-critical thoughts to more positive. Over to you.
Sounds good. So as we transition, start really thinking about motivation as we work with individuals through our Healthy Living program. This is a topic that comes up pretty frequently with individuals and groups. Just some definitions from Merriam-Webster dictionary here that I appreciate is the act or process of giving someone a reason to do something. And it's really that idea of a process, that motivation can be a process. It's not one size fits all, or I have it all the time, or I don't. And so it could be placed on a continuum. And that's something that we can be aware of and just be really mindful of as we move along our weight loss journey. And that it's an influence that can cause someone to act or to do something, or even to not do something, depending on how our motivation kind of ebbs and flows. So really encourage all of us just to pay attention to, when do I notice high levels of motivation? When do I notice lower levels of motivation? We also know that in dealing with change at any point in our life, change can be difficult, whether that's a work change, a family dynamic change, or a weight management change. Dr. William Miller and Stephen Rolnick are really the leaders in what is a skill called motivational interviewing that we use a lot in our practice. And it really just helps people see through reasons for doing something, looking at their own importance or confidence levels. But what I like and appreciate about this statement is that importance will change every day depending on my other responsibilities and how I think about my behaviors. So again, motivation is not a static thing in that it changes based on what's going on in my life and how every day looks completely different. We may have good days and we may feel like we have better days than others. So just kind of keeping that in mind, that motivation will change, and just to really start embracing it and pay attention to that. So again, it's not a trait characteristic about us as a person necessarily, that it really fluctuates over time and based on what we're encountering in our own life. I think about myself personally, or people that I've worked with, that we might have lower motivation on those days that we're highly stressed, or you're short on time, or you're kind of in a holiday mode, so therefore, our thinking and our focus might not be on our behavioral goals, but more on socializing and relaxing and taking time off from our normal schedule. We might feel like we have lower motivation than other days. Or again, in social functions, where we might be surrounded by other people and maybe even influenced by their behaviors and us to follow suit. So again, just a great opportunity to look at, when are my motivation levels changing? When do I have great motivation, and when do I find it lacking? We do know that a lot of us are highly motivated when we're supported by others, and we're going to talk a little bit about how social support can play a role. And also when we personally feel like our work-life balance is in a really great place. So if I'm feeling really good about my job, what I'm doing with my career or with my family, and feel like I have equal time for that, as well as maybe some structure, I might feel like I have higher motivation to continue on my weight loss plan. So some strategies that we have the opportunity to work with our guests on, and that I like to kind of work individually with people, is to really build off success in other life areas. So I may ask a client or a group that I'm working with, what else is going well in your life right now? How do you function at your job when it's going really positively? And they may speak about, well, I'm really organized and I get these agendas out on time and I plan ahead for these projects and meetings and just feel well prepared going in. We might be able to connect some of those strategies back to a weight loss plan. So to say, great, how are you organized at work? And how could we maybe marry that or bring that into your weight loss strategy? Because you do it so well there, and it seems to be a natural fit for you. How can you do that with your weight loss plan? So they may then start looking at, well, I could plan my activity. I could really look ahead at the week and find out better days that I might be more successful at being active, or group. If it's a group fitness class I really want to take, look ahead and find out when that is. Put it on my calendar, because at work I really thrive off my calendar. Great, let's take some of that information and build it into your weight loss and your weight management plan. We may also tap into past success strategies to really draw from. So for many of us, we've tried weight loss before, or we've encountered different experiences with that. So we may say, well, what worked well for you, 5 years ago when you experienced, your weight loss success? And are there any strategies from back then that we could pull forward now because you've already had experience with that and maybe have some confidence there? So don't be afraid to go back and look at past success strategies that have worked for you and bring them back in. You might change them slightly now, but okay to revisit some of those. Market your goals to yourself. So I love that you spoke about being physically active and really making it fun. I think, why do we do anything if it's not socially enjoyable or that we find interesting or a fun or value for us? So weight loss is hard. And how can we make it a little easier by bringing in an element of novelty? So bringing in some new things maybe we haven't tried before, but we think we can do it. Or perhaps it's even taking different walking paths, as we recommend, walking for exercise. That idea of maybe if I change my route each day, or I have different themes or things that I'm looking for, that brings in a newness, some interest or some fun into my exercise plan. And I like that word curiosity. If we can be curious about some of the behaviors that we display and just see what happens when I set out this plan, what can I notice and what can I bring in as a way to kind of just find new information about some of our health routines.
As you're talking, what I'm really thinking about is looking at my strengths,
Yeah.
which is just the opposite of what most people look at, like what's gone wrong in the past, as opposed to what's helped me succeed in other areas. So really a strengths-based approach.
Absolutely. So a lot through our wellness coaching practices, we'll examine, people's strengths and really call them out and see if there's a way they can act on those. It makes life just a little bit easier. We alluded to a little bit of this with planning and preparedness, but when we can plan ahead and maybe foresee into the future ever so slightly about how our week might look, how a certain day might look, it really allows us for more control. And our mind and brain are very interesting in that we like to have a little control, as we can anticipate maybe challenges or successes they may happen as a result. So if we can build in some control factors, such as planning ahead for the week with meals, or scheduling in time for friends, because it builds your social connections, which then make you feel good and want to continue to stay on an exercise or healthy eating regimen, and it gives you some certainty for what can you control moving forward. We also look at preparing people for trigger situations. So I think weight loss is a great time in our life to really look at, what do I need for myself, and to explore what are some of my own personal triggers. Is it a certain time of day that I find myself really getting hungry, or maybe I'm really just tired but I'm not reading my signs and symptoms very well? Are there certain triggers, like under stress, that cause me to maybe change my behaviors a little bit? Or even certain environments, like our break room, for example, if people are celebrating different things and there's a lot of treats in the environment, or things that kind of trigger me to change my eating plan. So take some time to self-reflect. Where are those trigger situations for you? Is it certain environments, certain individuals, certain stress responses that I might have? So that way you can better plan for those moving forward.
Great point.
You alluded to this a little bit earlier, Dr. Clark, where we focus on process versus outcome strategies. So the outcome, having an outcome focus, would be that maybe my weight loss goal is I want to lose 30 pounds. Wonderful to have that outcome goal and that vision for what you're striving for, but also, and maybe not, maybe even more importantly, is the process focus of how am I going to get there. And sometimes when we're feeling overwhelmed, we lose sight of that. We lose sight of how am I going to get there when all I really want is to lose that 30 pounds because that's my vision. So to really scale back and really look at the fine details of what's my process looking like to get me to that 30 pounds. So it's moving the train backwards, if you will, to really look at these small behaviors: breakfast, planned snacks, exercise, social support, maybe even some stress management or proper sleep for myself so I do feel most energy for the next day. Because when we focus on those behavioral pieces, typically the outcomes follow. So focus on those small steps. You mentioned about tracking behaviors, and what I think is really helpful with the groups and individuals we've worked with is that it really increases our awareness and allows you to really observe your patterns over time. So even though maybe I'm wearing that pedometer or other device mechanism or even food tracking, I can observe my patterns over a period of time. So that way I can kind of see some trends. Chances are I'll have probably quite a few good days in there that a lot of times our brain typically says disregard the good days, focus only on the bad days, when in reality we've probably had some good sprinkled in there that we don't want to lose sight of. So tracking those behavioral patterns can be very helpful. I like to use that statement as well of keeping things factual. So if we were a scientist looking at some of this tracking data, let's keep it factual. If we can remove some of our own personal emotion and attachment to the things that we either aren't doing as well as we'd hoped, and just say, I missed this important piece of my meal plan yesterday, and I chose something differently that I didn't anticipate. But I'm just going to note it. I'm going to note what did I learn from it, and how can I plan better for tomorrow. So to kind of just keeping that bird's eye view and keeping it factual. Self-compassion is another important piece that we look at and work with individuals with or groups. And I think we can plan to have a setback or two. A lot of times we think that that's not going to happen to us as we strive for things that we really want in life. But it's okay, and okay to go into a plan thinking, if I can plan for these triggers or these potential pitfalls, I'll be better able to come around from them and to bounce back a little more quickly. And we talked a little bit about negative and positive thinking, and we like to use that term self-talk. So if you think about the stories that we kind of hear or tell ourselves periodically, first step really is to catch them or notice them and just see them happening. And maybe you'll observe, wow, I'm really doing this often to myself. How could I reframe that language to make it a little more realistic or not quite as harsh or a little more positive? And I liked your best friend approach that you talked about, and that's something we would encourage too, is would I say this out loud to my best friend or my child or a relative? And chances are we probably wouldn't, but internally we say it to ourselves. So how can we be a little softer to ourselves and plan for some self-compassion, and that we're going to need that as part of this journey? Anything you'd add more?
No, those are great points, and just keeping it positive is so important.
Yeah. In our line of work, we like to use this idea of an experimental approach as a motivational strategy. So if you think for yourselves for a moment, what does that word experiment mean to you? A lot of times our guests would say, or our individuals we're working with would say, the result is often unknown. I have an aim for where I want to be or a hypothesis that I'm testing out, but I might have to add different elements to get it to go exactly the way I want it to go. And so if we can embrace even that approach, where can we be curious with how my SMART goals might work this week? Can I be curious as to what happens when I execute this type of plan? What might my result be?
Yeah, I was just thinking so many people have a preconception of how it's going to work.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to have oatmeal for breakfast tomorrow. Well, I haven't had oatmeal since whatever I was 8, so I don't even remember whether I liked it or not. But I have this idea that I'm going to love it and it's going to work, as opposed to be open to what the experience is going to be.
Right. And even if you've had past experience with something and it's gone well or you've liked it, or it hasn't gone well and you didn't like it, it's okay to try it again. You're maybe in a different place. You might have new knowledge. You might have a different support structure that we can be curious about it trying something new again this time. So see these experiments, see these goals as opportunities to learn from them, learn what works well, learn how would I change things for next time, how would I make it go a little bit differently. And so that helps take that pressure off and where we can be a little bit free of our own personal expectations. This next point, that real progress occurs after the experiment, connects readily to this diagram of when an experiment happens, or an action step, or even just an event, a conversation that you may have with someone at work or with your family, there's often a space after where we can just be mindful of, to really look at, to say, how did that go for me? Did that go well? Is this an opportunity that I could even celebrate for just a second of, I made a great choice there, or I followed through on going for that walk today when I was kind of doubting if I would have time. Or if it didn't go the way you had planned, pay attention to that space to ask yourself, what could I change for next time? What could I alter for a future experiment or action step to take? And it may be a window for you to practice a little self-compassion. So just to embrace that short time after something goes well or something didn't, and what can I learn from that? We'd call that a learning mindset.
Yeah, just having that open mind is so important.
There we go. So what we're putting up here is what we call a behavior chain, and this could be really framed in maybe more of a negative or a positive behavior chain. We put one up for you today to really look at what a typical day would look like. Perhaps for some of us, if we've woken up stressed, maybe our alarm didn't go off, maybe we had a sick child and we had to rearrange a lot of things this morning. Therefore, I skipped breakfast. Oh, but I saw some coffee and donuts in my break room, which wasn't on my meal plan, but I'm starving, and it might even elevate my stress level, because donuts, don't they help with that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, sometimes. And so therefore, I feel guilty. I might be shaming myself or blaming myself, might attract this I blew it kind of approach for the morning. So therefore, I'm skipping lunch. I'm so hungry now by 2 or 3 o'clock that I see the vending machine downstairs, and I'm grabbing my chips and my Snickers bar, and again, that guilt kind of comes back through. So then I'm just going to skip my walk altogether because my mood doesn't make me feel up to it. And again, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten well today, so I'm swinging by the drive-thru on my way home, where I then maybe eat it in front of my TV. And then it just kind of repeats that cycle. I'm quitting for the day, I blew it. So if we can kind of look at the chain that sometimes happens for us and maybe identify early, where could we interrupt this? And then how could I kind of turn that boat around? How could I interrupt some of the behaviors that I continue in my cycle? And sometimes that just means planning ahead a little bit. Do I have some extra breakfast bars at my desk? So if I do wake up stressed, I know when I get to work, I can at least have that there for myself. Do I have some stashed prepared meals that I could quickly grab, so I know that by the time I get to lunch, I can implement them, so I can kind of break this chain? But just a really great awareness. This can be in a positive light as well. So when you catch yourself doing positive things, eating a good breakfast, which maybe then enabled you to walk by the donuts or say you don't need one right now, which then maybe enabled you to choose a healthy salad with your coworkers at lunch. It can be a positive behavior chain as well. So just paying attention to how these can pass along to each other is a great observation when you're working on weight management. So a couple perspectives as we look at physical activity. You can think to yourself if you've had these for yourself. And again, paying attention to our own thinking and perspectives. So you can read through several of these here. I'll experience greater weight loss if I'm active. My mood might improve, as physical activity often elevates our mood. My health overall will improve. It's going to be fun. I might be able to work out with some coworkers or family. I typically sleep better when engaging in physical activity because my body's experienced a little fatigue and some work during the day. But that I'm also thinking physical activity can be structured as well as non-structured. So I have a new viewpoint on physical activity. On the flip side, I might perceive exercise or physical activity as the following, that it might be intense physical pain at times if I haven't exercised for quite a while. I might embarrass myself if I go to a class that's maybe way above my level and I find myself not really understanding the instruction there. Or I hate to sweat, and that's very uncomfortable. Perhaps it alludes to more laundry, which I feel like I do often at home. Or maybe you just didn't care for your gym experiences or physical education experiences when growing up, so that you kind of have an attitude or preconceived thinking about how you'll experience exercise now. Or it may mean just more work for you, that you won't have time to do it because of home or work activities. So I think, again, it's really just paying attention to what are the thoughts that we're having around some of these behavioral ideas with physical activity. And I like to step back and ask myself, are these true or real? Right? If I hate gym class, then will I hate maybe water aerobics now that's got a lot of music and I know some coworkers are going, or taking walks with my kids to be active. So kind of just dispelling the myth, or challenging some of the self-talk that we have. And in looking at some of these perceptions, we can also begin to look at what we call a decisional balance. And you might just call it plain and simple a pros and cons list. So these can help you determine how important is this for me to be working on this plan, by making these lists for ourselves and then really taking kind of an honest look at them. So as we build our motivation for change, we really look at, again, two key areas by our colleagues Miller and Rolnick that we can focus on to determine our motivation levels. One would be asking ourselves, how important is this really? How important is it for me to lose weight right now? Would I rank this high? Would I rank this low? How confident am I to lose weight right now? Do I have fairly high confidence, meaning I have maybe the knowledge or skills to do so? I also might have the support to do so, or am I feeling pretty low in my confidence level? And so by assessing some of these, you can then best determine how to work with your team to build those up. So I'm going to give an example of a SMART goal of I will take 4 45-minute walks this week in my neighborhood. So as a coach or as a resiliency specialist working in a group, I might say, Dr. Clark, what makes walking in your neighborhood for 45 minutes a good goal for you? And you might tell me, Brooke, I rank this a 7. This is really important. This is important for me. And it gives us a chance to kind of hear, how are these things important for you? Well, it allows me to be active. It allows me to think about my health, but maybe also enjoy my time with my kids on going on hikes when they come to visit. So it gets kind of down to the heart of the matter for you of things that you value, your family, and doing fun things and moments with them. So it allows you kind of to assess, right? Is this goal something very important? What would I rank that on a scale of 1 to 10? If it comes at a lower level, maybe I give it a 2 or a 3. I would maybe modify my goal a little bit. Looking at my week ahead, I really can't do 4 45-minute walks because my kids have all kinds of activities. But I could do 2 45-minute walks. I would encourage you to say, great, let's modify that. You can always add more. And chances are when we're out walking, we may even add more time to that as we're getting going. So the idea is just keep moving. Just keep adding to those goals and assessing as you're going. Social support, again, just such a key factor as we look at motivation. And just that idea of it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. We may have different groups of people that we use for different things. They wear many hats for us. So maybe in my example, my friends and coworkers, they're my activators. They're also my resource. So I have a colleague at work that we will book different physical activity classes to attend and help each other in getting there. So she may say, did you bring your workout bag today? Or are we still going to this core class? And I think for me that is really such a support. I hate to tell her no. And it also helps support her, and I want to do that for her. So think about activators in your life, whether these are coworkers or friends. It's great to involve loved ones if they want to celebrate along with you, but they also want to help you. And so it's okay to share some frustrations as a way to help develop your plan. Your healthcare team, great for accountability. They want to know how you're doing. They want to know how you're using these behaviors and implementing them. Or maybe it's your healthcare team may even expand into group fitness instructor or classes or things of that nature that's even in broader scope than just a certain individual. And lastly, the sharing of experiences, I think, is really important. So meanwhile, I might go to this physical activity class. I might not know the names of every person there, but it feels good to me to know we're all working on something and we're all taking time to build our wellness and to work towards our own physical goals. And that's just a great sharing of experiences. So build in different people for different support methods and involve them throughout your journey. As we're winding down, we like to think about the relapse preparation phase. And I like that word preparation, just as we can prepare going into maybe having a setback or a life circumstance that changes our course for a short while. You know, it's kind of really in summary of what we've been talking about today. Positive self-talk, seeking support, planning these positive activities that are fun, they're curious, they're new, thinking about our thinking and even just noticing that. Sticking with some small form of exercise if we can, because it's a mood enhancer and it can again just build this self-efficacy. If I start walking at my lunch break, maybe it'll encourage me to walk again tomorrow at my lunch break, and focus on those small process pieces instead of just the outcome.
Well, thank you, Brooke. So just a few last pieces and then we'll take a few questions. I put this slide up. This is a picture of the Mayo Clinic diet, and really the reason I put it up is I wouldn't feel that I was providing good care in this area if we didn't work as a team. And that's really what I want to depart to all of you is if you're going to think about succeeding in weight management, who's on your team? Who's helping you with proper nutrition? Who's your physical guidance? Who's going to help you go for a walk? Who's your motivational person? So to think about a team. And then in terms of local resources, think of your primary care provider as someone who can give you some guidance. So they not only know your health history, but they also know the resources that are in your community. So if you have diabetes, they might know about a diabetes education program. If you have challenges with your back, they might have a good back strengthening program for you. So talk to your primary care provider about how to get started. If I'm looking for some, again, when I'm thinking about how much weight I'm trying to lose and what's my weight history, if I don't have health concerns and I'm not trying to lose a lot of weight, self-guided materials can be beneficial. The Mayo Clinic diet book is one of them. If I'm seeking to lose more weight or if I need more support, thinking about a professional program, such as we do offer the Healthy Living program, but there's certainly going to be professional programs in your community. I think that opens this up for questions. And thank you again for everybody for your time, and we will do our best to try to get through questions and answer questions that you have.
I was just going to mention whatever questions we don't get to, we'll be trying to respond back to and providing answers back to you within about a week.
So first question that we have is, do you think that overeating can be caused by anxiety? Question, and could an anti-anxiety medication help? Complex question. There's actually a lot more research looking at depression, and that's one of the areas I've looked at. And if I have a clinical depression, getting treatment for that is really going to help me with my eating. If I think anxiety is causing my eating, I want to address my anxiety. So let me talk to a physician about if a medication could help. But certainly counseling could help, or maybe some resiliency strategies could help. But addressing that anxiety is what would be beneficial. I'll let you pick the next one. Right. I can answer it.
Second question. I'm always giving 100% to my job, my kids, my spouse, always putting their needs first. What tips can you share that will help make myself a priority? And I would just comment that you're probably not alone in a lot of this thinking. And maybe I would just recommend or encourage you to think about how can you diversify your plan so that you can do some things with your kids. You can embrace your physical activity plan or healthy eating plan with your family. But then also, are there any small elements to which you could carve out some self-care for you so that you can be there for your family and kids when you need them at their best? So think about just where those small opportunities where it might be for you as you look at your day.
Making yourself a priority is always a theme that comes up in every group that I've ever led, and it's such a challenge for so many people.
Yeah, I would agree. I'll go ahead and read it. What happens when an overweight person decides to lose weight but can't make the steps to take action? What do you think is the biggest mental hurdle to overcome in losing weight?
As we were saying before, I think at the beginning, so many people have had failure, or It's really difficult to start a diet. It's extremely difficult to stay on a diet. So a lot of people unfortunately have a failure experience. If I failed at something, why would I want to try it again? So I want to lose weight, but I just don't have the confidence. So I think the biggest step someone can think about is what is going to be different this time. I'm eat when I'm anxious. Well, maybe if I do some anxiety management as part of my weight program, that'll be helpful. Maybe last time when I tried to lose weight, I didn't involve my family, so let's involve them. Last time I tried to lose weight, I didn't get my primary care physician involved. So think about who can be on your team. And then the other thing a lot of people just think about is here how I'm going to get started, but how am I going to keep going is an important part.
Yeah, so being able to plan a little bit for that future as you're moving forward. Okay. Question 4, I crave sweets. What can I do to stop this? And I guess as we work with individuals in our programming, we really look at this aspect called mindful eating. So how can I enjoy what I'm eating and really pay attention to it and almost savor what I'm eating? If typically it is a sweet or other foods that we really enjoy. And maybe as we do that, we might notice our cravings change. But you may just even enjoy that food a little bit more. So mindful eating can be a really great approach. There's some great resources out online that you can explore. But to really savor, slow down, pay attention to that sweet that you might enjoy, and plan for it. Think about the small portion that you might like to have as part of your meal plan, so that way your mind is in control for when you're eating what you're craving.
There's a lot out there nowadays on mindful eating and a lot of resources, and it's really just when I am going to have these luxury foods, and we all have them and we all like them, sweets and sugars and things like that, let me enjoy them and let me be mindful of how much I'm having.
Yeah, and just that idea of you're going in with it with control and building it into your plan. All right, here's the next one. I've tried to lose weight for years, but I'm addicted to food. I eat when I am not hungry, not for any particular reason other than I love the taste of food. I'm educated on what to do with diet and exercise, but I fail every time due to my food addiction. What program could help me?
So this is a new area that people are looking at, food addiction. And with other addictions, if you think of someone, I'm a problem drinker, and when I started off drinking, a certain alcohol would give me that results, but my need for alcohol continued to increase, so I needed more and more, and that I have withdrawal. So if I'm an alcoholic and I don't drink, I'm at risk of serious challenges. People talk about food addiction in the same way. I crave more. It's difficult for me to challenge it. This is a new area people are looking at, so we're trying to learn a lot. Part of it, I think, is going to be mood stabilization for people. Just what can I do to manage stress and resiliency, because we all have that in life. And then, since I can't give up these foods, how can I learn how to moderate them, which is going to be challenging. So it's a new area that people are looking at. It's a wonderful question.
I would also add, if we can just build awareness around when we're eating and maybe why we're eating, why we think we might be addicted to the type of food. There's an acronym called HALT, where we work with individuals to say, perhaps we're eating something for other reasons, such as hunger. Maybe we are physically hungry. Could I be angry, which is A, lonely for the L, and T, which could be tired or fatigued. And I would even throw in a B for boredom. So just kind of thinking about, I'm finding myself in the kitchen or in my favorite cupboard. Am I really hungry right now? Or is this something, another reason why I might be eating? And to really just kind of explore that. And then I often ask, will food fill that void for me? And chances are it may not, if I'm bored or if I'm tired or angry or frustrated.
Great addition.
I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia at Mayo Clinic. I've gained 20 pounds and haven't been able to lose the additional pounds since then. Could this be medication related?
So I'm a psychologist, but I'll give that a general answer, which is, and again, this is why you want to talk to your primary care physician. So many people that we see as part of our team are on medications that are helping them with a health concern, but are also maybe attributing to the weight gain. So then you got to have a discussion with your physician that's prescribing the medication. Is there a different medication that I can go on? Can somehow I work against the weight gaining effects of this? So a lot of medications are associated with weight gain. Have that discussion with your primary care physician or the person who prescribes the medication for you.
Great. I often feel frustrated when I stop seeing results on the scale after the first month or so. What do you tell your patients or individuals you work with when they experience this? And I think in the work that I do, it's kind of going back to your past successes. What's when things were working well for you? What were some things you were doing? What could we go back to? Um, Often we'll go back to even tracking behaviors again. What happens if we start doing some more tracking? Will that help you observe some patterns or trends? And to also know that weight loss is typically a wave where it may not come off as quickly as it maybe did in the beginning. But so to practice this idea of patience when looking at kind of our behaviors and keep focusing on that process of what can I do today that's within my control to hopefully help that outcome that I'm seeing.
Similar and related to that, a new idea, University of Pennsylvania was looking at people's frustration as they go through a weight loss program. And most people hit weeks where they're just not feeling positive about the weight that they're losing. If you get people to rate their quality of life, so as I'm losing weight, I'm sleeping better, my energy is going up, my confidence is going up. If you also get people to look at their quality of life, usually even though maybe my weight's staying the same because I'm more active and I'm eating healthier, we see quality of life improve. So that's something we're just trying to look at now, is getting people to look at, just rate your quality of life. If that's improving, can that be motivation to help you keep going?
In addition, there might even be another great time if you find yourself kind of plateauing, is the term we often use in weight management, to go back to your team again, whether that's your healthcare team, maybe your exercise team or nutritional team that you're working with, to just kind of connect with them again to see if they would have any other modifications to work with you, so that maybe you could just change things up or bring in something novel for your plan. We have time for just one or two more questions. Do you want to take the next one?
So we got a summer one, which is good. I do pretty well until I go to a summer family event. Then I overeat and it all falls apart. How do I stay on track at a summer cookout with lots of tempting foods? I think there's a couple answers for this that people can look at. One is just ahead of time, will there be healthy foods for me to select from? So do I volunteer to bring those foods, or if I'm getting family support, maybe some are there. Someone in my group recently told me what they do is I just look through the line, and then if it's not a super favorite food, why would I try it? Because in the past, sometimes what I'd do is I'd load up 5 desserts on my plate, but I didn't even really like 4 of them. So let me just pick the one that I like and have that. So one is kind of making food choices. Second one, I think, is just kind of support. So many people say, if I start overeating, I've got my sister's there, my brother's there. They're a good support for me. If I can just turn to them during this high-risk time, that can get me back on track. And then we also think about physical activity. If it's a summer event, is there someone that you would like to catch up with? You could go for a walk. Can I organize a volleyball game? Can I do some movement to get me away from food for a little bit?
Okay. I like that idea of even just scanning what's there ahead of time so that you can go in with control and decide, I'm going to pick these 5 things because that's what looked best for me for my health choices, and just having a little knowledge before you get up to all the many options that are out there. The last question is, how does wellness coaching work for weight loss? And the wellness coaching approach that we are trained in and that we utilize really focuses on kind of one-on-one individual paths for what does the patient or guest or client really want to focus on, and how do we connect that to your life so that that you're in control of setting the goals and behaviors based on the evidence and knowledge that works best for you from a behavioral standpoint, but that you're helping to set the course. And then we allow, we just check in with you and help you to kind of navigate that journey.
What's kind of interesting, so wellness coaching,
Mm-hmm.
You're a wellness coach, but I've been learning about wellness coaching. And we've done some research projects together. One of the interesting things is, first we looked at people that come into wellness coaching for weight loss. That's been really beneficial to them, and that makes sense because wellness coaching can help me have that better balance of life, address stress, get better sleep. It all fits together. But we also have just looked at, what about people that just come into wellness coaching for general reasons, better work-life balance? We found that those people also end up losing weight and eating more nutritiously and having a physical activity. So we've learned that wellness coaching for weight loss works, but also wellness coaching just helps people achieve a healthier weight.
Well, we want to thank you for your time. Again, we'll try and answer any additional questions that we didn't get to within this following week. And thank you for joining us here at Mayo Clinic.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, and hopefully we gave you some ideas that can be beneficial to you. And thank you for your time.